Hello everyone, welcome to Zistus Learn JS. I'm really excited to kick off things with my very first video. Here on my channel, I'll be sharing my journey as I dive into new JavaScript topics. And let's be real, these videos won't be perfect, but they will be honest and full of what I'm learning all along the way. I hope you join me as we explore, experiment, and grow our coding skills together. So let's get started. For for the first video today, I learned some aspects of data structure and algorithm, and with that, I was able to touch some aspects of it. So today, basically, we'll be looking at some instances where this knowledge can be put in place and used. So for the first question, we have what we have on our screen. Giving a string Queen Elizabeth, create a function that takes in the string as an argument and returns the character that has the highest number of occurrences and its number of occurrences. So from the question, what we need is to create a function that takes in the string that we are given as an argument and returns the character that has the highest number of occurrences, and also to return its number of occurrences. So when it returns the character that has the highest number of occurrences, it also tells us its number of occurrences in that string with that function. Now, the essence of having a function is actually to be used to solve other different codes. So if we are given a different string, it should be able to work for it. But we are just given a string to test it with, which is the Queen Elizabeth, which contains Queen Elizabeth. So to start with, we call the function name. We'll call it with a declarator at first. We'll be using let. You call your declarator, you type your declarator. Let's use let for this, and then you type your function name. Let's use mode. You could call it anything, but let's use something that correlates with what we are looking at. So we say mode of characters. Since we are looking for the character that occurs the most, you can call it mode of characters. So this is the syntax for the function. This is the syntax for the function. You type in your syntax and then you enter. Now to achieve this, you sorry, let me clear the terminal first of all. Let me clear the terminal first of all. Alright, we have a clear terminal now. So we can now continue. Now, like I was about to say, I said we have a string that contains alphabets, characters that come in different cases. We have letters in uppercase and we also have letters in lowercase in that string. And it will give us an issue when achieving this because the machine understands it is case sensitive. It is case sensitive in the sense that it recognizes uppercase differently from lowercase. So when it sees E in uppercase, it takes it different from E in lowercase and we not want that to interfere with our code. So we are going to convert all the characters in the string to either uppercase or lowercase. But I would prefer personally to convert them all to lowercase. In your own practice time, you could use uppercase. It's still same thing. So to achieve this, we are going to use the string method that converts a string to lowercase, which is the dot to lowercase method. Now we call in another variable. We say let word be equal to the parameter called up. Okay, yes, we have to call a parameter here since we want it to be dynamic, like I explained earlier. So what we typed here is a dynamic value. You could pass for anything, as long as you call it in your argument at the end of the day. You see what I mean as we go on. So we say string dot to lower case, dot to lower case, then we call the bracket, and that is how we call the bracket. This is the syntax for dot to lower case. It doesn't take an argument. Then to test this, let's just see what it gives us. Mode of characters, and then in the extra bracket we put in the argument that we want to actually work, make the function work on. And the argument we are trying to make it work on is Queen Elizabeth. So let's see what it gives us in the on the terminal. Okay, returns undefined because we have not typed our return here. So we have to return word. We have to return the WRD, which is the value of the mode of characters to lowercase, because that's the only operation we have actually run here. So when we save we get the string now all in lower cases. You can see them here, you can see it here on our terminal. So now we have it in all, we now have it all in lower case. So but actually that's not our aim, so we'll move on. I just did that to show you the step-by-step process of achieving this. So now we have converted them to lower case. The next thing we call a new variable that contains an empty object. Now to achieve this, it the first thing that comes to your mind is to create a scenario where the characters and the number of occurrences are in an object format, whereby an object format is keys values format. That means it has a key and the value of that key in the object. So it will be easier for us to have them in that format. So whereby you have your q, for example, q stands for the key and the value will stand for the number of occurrences of q. So to achieve this, we need to have them in an object format, which is why we create the variable x, which is an empty object. Let's move on. Now, after creating it, we look for a way to make to create a function that continuously runs on the string and checks for each character and its number of occurrences. And to achieve this, iteration, we need something that should continuously check through the string, like an iteration that continuously checks through the string. So the first thing that comes to your mind in JavaScript is a loop. We have the while loop and we have the for loop. So the first thing that comes to your mind is a loop that helps you to continuously check for the characters in the string and the number of occurrences. It continuously checks it until you set aside until it gets the highest number, the letter with the highest number of occurrences. That is after it has iterated through the string. So we'll be using the for loop to achieve this. So simply put, for for let for let I of let I of word let I of word, it should be id. Remember, we are still looking at the word, which is when we say let I of word, we mean the keys, the various characters in that. Since the value of the word now is Queen Elizabeth, our string in lowercase. So the let I of word I here stands for the characters in the string. So remember the value of our WRB is Queen Elizabeth now in lowercase. So the let I here stands for the characters, each character in the string. So so now this is the syntax for the for loop. So we have our condition there, the element, the initial condition, the element of that string, the WRG, which is a string. Now in the return, we are going to pass in x of I, x of I. Now x, like I don't forget, x is an empty object. You can see it here. X is an empty object. It doesn't contain anything yet. So but we are calling this function because we want it to have the characters and their number of occurrences in keys and value format. So we simply say x, which is this empty, which is the array. Using bracket notation, we make each of the characters a key of the object, and that is why we use x, then bracket, square bracket, I. So with this function, we are able to create an object notation using bracket notation for it. So we say x bracket I equal to x bracket I. Now x bracket y with an increment or 1. Now you can look at, now this simply means that the value the value which is x, using bracket notation. When you use bracket notation, it gives you the value. So it is the bracket, the object bracket, the key. It should give you the value. So it means the value should be equal to an increment if it exists. If it exists, then the first block of code should run. But if it does not exist, let the second block of code run. The sign here is the or sign. So so if it does not exist, it should return 1. But if it exists, there should be an increment. So with this already set down, with this already set down, it means that since this is a loop, it continuously checks all the characters in the string, starting from q down to the last character. So it continuously checks, starting with q. It puts q in place of I and then runs through. It checks if q exists already in the empty object here. At first it does not exist, so it means it returns 1 as its value until it sees it again. Then there might be an increment, but if it does not, it remains 1. Same thing with the next alphabet, which is u. It checks it, and if since it does not already exist there, it returns 1 until it sees it again. That is when it has an increment. But as long as it does not exist there already, it returns 1. So that's what this block of code actually entails. Now having done that already, we declare two new variables. So we say let number equal to 0, and then we say let character be equal to an empty string. Now the essence of this first block of code is for us to have an object object format of the characters and their number of occurrences. Let's check. Let's see the result when we console log like this. Okay, so we have to return x, right? Sorry, we should return x. Don't ever forget to add your return. So you return x. So when you return x, it gives you this. It gives you this. So you see it is now in an object format with each of the characters as keys and their number of occurrences as their values. You can see them. Q has 1, U has 1, E has 4, N has 1. We have an empty string, that is the space 1. Then we have the L, which is 1, I 1, and the rest. You can look at it. You can use your own examples. Now you understand what that loop actually did to the string. So this is not actually what we need, but I just did it to give an illustration. So now we'll continue. We just need a function that will tell us the highest occurring character and the number of occurrences. So we'll continue. Now that's the reason why we call these two different variables, the let number be 0 and let character be empty string. So we call another loop. Now this loop continuously checks. Now let me call it first of all before explanation. So we say for let I in x. This is syntax for the for loop. You can see I used it in the first one. Now the difference here is, since um we are now dealing with an object, we will no longer be using the for off loop. We'll be using the for in loop. So that's why we are using it here now, because now we are dealing with x, which is an object. You can see it in the terminal. X is an object. Now the condition here states that if number if number is less than the if number is less than x bracket I, then let it return number equal to x bracket I and character equal to I. Now, what does this block of code or this condition simply mean? It means now we have our keys and values, and like I said, the keys are the I, is signified by I. The keys in this case now, let I in x. I here now indicates the keys in the object x, because x is an object. Initially, I here stood for the different characters inside the string wrg. So here x is not a string, it is now an object. Therefore, I is the key, it signifies the keys in that object. So using object notation, like I explained earlier, using dot notation for object, x bracket I simply means the values of each key. So this block of code simply means if number which is 0 at the start, since this is a loop, it is only 0 at the beginning of the iteration. So since it's a loop, it continuously runs, and as it runs, the value of that number changes. It acquires a new value after each iteration. So if the number is less than the value, like I explained, x bracket I is the value. If it is greater than if it is less than the value, then the number should become the value, and then the character should become the key. Like I explained, I told you in this case, I is the keys. I signifies the keys. X signifies the complete object. While x bracket I signifies the keys, the values to each of the keys. So this block of code simply means, I repeat, if number which is 0 at the beginning of the iteration If the number is less than the value, then let it return the number equal to the value and the character equals to the key assigned to that value. So that being done, or that being said, we can now say return, because it continuously does the iteration. Now, given the example we have on our terminal, it should start with Q. And starting with Q, we check we put Q in place of I. We put Q in place of what? Of I. So if we put Q in place of I, it runs if the number is less than X bracket Q, will give us 1, because 1 is the value for that key. So since the number at first is 0, it means it passes the test. So on our return, it will surely be number equal to the number will now change to 1, because it passes this test. The 0 is less than 1, so it passes the test and then returns the number becoming 1 now, no longer 0. So upon the first iteration, the number changes from 0 to 1 and the character becomes Q, which is the key to assign to that value of 1. It does the first iteration. It is a loop, so it does not stop. It continues. It checks again. When it checks again, it checks, since we have a new number which is now 1, it checks for the next one. We have U, so U takes the place of I this time around. Now you check if number is less than that. Now the new number is 1, so we check if that one is less than the new X bracket I, which is still 1, because U has the value of 1 in the object here on our terminal. Now 1 is not less than 1, so it does not pass the test. The number remains the same, the character remains the same. It goes on to the next character, which is E, according to what we have on our terminal. Then it comes in here. E has a value of 4, so it comes here, checks it. It says if number initially, now our number is 1. Remember, our number is 1. 1 less than X bracket I. In this case, X bracket I, which is the value, is 4. So it means it passes the test. Since it passes the test, it means that we now have a new number and character, which is number will be equal to 4. The character will be equals to the key assigned to that 4, which is E. So we have a new number 4 and a new character E. So it continuously runs this process of iterating through the object until it is done with all the keys in the object X. That is what this for loop entails. So automatically we will just, using our string literals, we say the letter with the highest, let's say highest number of occurrences is, then we'll call in the function, we'll call in the variable name here using the dollar sign. This is a string literal, so we use the dollar sign and the curly braces to signify where we want to impute a JavaScript function. So let's say the highest number of occurrences will be the character. Let's use a double quote around it to make it stand different. So we have done that. Is the character with an appearance of we call the function the number, yes, the number function, because that's what gives us the number of occurrences. Like I said earlier, the values are the number of occurrences. So let's use double quotes here to use double quotes here. So we have the string literal complete. Okay, sorry, this letter. So with this we save this, and it gives us sorry, there's a slight mistake here. It should be dollar sign and then sorry the number. Okay, that's it. So we save. So we have it now. The letter with the highest on our terminal, we have the letter with the highest number of occurrences is E with an appearance of 4. Now if you check, if you look at the argument passed in here, we can count and we can see that the letter E occurs a total of 4 times, and it is the character or letter with the highest number of occurrence in the string. So we can still check for, since I explained earlier, this is a function, it should work for not just one scenario, it should work for various scenarios. So after writing this function, we can put in any string at all. We can put in the statue of liberty, the statue of liberty. So if you put it, it says T is it said the letter with the highest number of occurrences is T with an appearance of 4. So automatically it runs whatever you put in here as your argument. The function runs on it and gives you a correct answer. So that is that on the first scenario where we use our data structure and algorithm to solve problems in JavaScript.